Hi, in our earlier videos of C programming, we saw for loop, while loop, and do while loop. We also saw a sample program for each of these loops. Today we will see the difference between these loops. Also we will see how to decide which loop we should use in our program in what circumstances. Let us start with for loop and while loop. Ideally, if we see for loop and while loop can be used interchangeably. For example, in this slide, for loop is nothing but a condition and then a statement, and while loop is also nothing but condition and then a statement. So both can be used interchangeably, but still there are scenarios where we should consider a particular one. For example, for is usually finite because for will have a counter and it will have a sense to fence. When it runs out of elements, the for loop will end. If you see the structure of for loop has an initialization part, condition part, and increment part that is based on counter. So if a counter is over, the statement should get completed and the control should move out of for loop. But it is not a hard and fast rule that for has to be finite. For loop can also be infinite. But usually, as I mentioned, usually for loop is used for finite conditions. While loop can be used for infinite conditions. If the condition isn't met, the loop is broken. Till the time the condition is met, the loop will continue. One main difference is while loops are best suited when you do not know ahead or when you do not know in advance the number of iterations that you need to do. When you know this before entering the loop, you can go for loop. This means the while loop is generally better when you don't have an iterator or counter. Now we will see the difference between do while and while loop. In these loops, the difference is the place where the condition is tested. The while tests the condition before executing any of the statements within the while loop. As against this, the do while statement tests the condition after having executed the statements within the loop. This means that do while would execute its statements at least once, even if the condition is false at the very first time. On the other hand, while loop will not execute the statements if the condition is false at the first time. Let us see an example for the same. In this example, the condition is 2 is less than 1, and we very well know that this is a false condition. So in while loop, you can see no statement is executed because at the very first moment the condition is false and the control does not get into the loop. Whereas in do while statement, we see at least once the printf statement will be executed because the condition is checked at the end of the do while. So as soon as the control flows, it moves inside the do statement, prints the statement, and then checks and finds that the condition is false. So breaks the loop and comes out of it. So it's simple. We should use do while when we need to ensure that the statements within the loop are executed at least once. So in today's video, we saw the difference between the for loop, the while loop, and the do while loop. Please let me know your feedback in the comment section below and do not forget to subscribe to my videos. Happy learning.